What is good, everyone? Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name is Nick Engvall, and before we get into today's episode, I'm going to ask a small favor from all of you. We've uploaded over 350 episodes of the show, and we're slowly creeping up on 600,000 downloads. I honestly can't even wrap my head around it. That is insane. Thank you so much for listening and being a part of this journey with us. If you could take a moment to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, hit that follow button on Spotify, and give us a rating, it would be greatly appreciated. I'm looking forward to taking the show to new levels in the coming months with more guests from the community, talks with industry professionals, and deeper dives into the sneaker stories that shape this obsession we are all so passionate about. And your support is going to make that happen, so thank you in advance. One last thing before we get into this episode, do the right thing. Tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a compliment will take you, and we all know how good it feels to be on the receiving end of some appreciation.
Jordan trying to shake off Starks. Oh, what a move by Jordan! LeBron James with no regard for human life. 12 seconds. Bryant for the win.
Iverson against Gill, the crowd on its feet. Allen for the win.
Welcome to the Sneaker History Podcast.
What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the Sneaker History Podcast. My name's Nick Engvall. I've got a couple of special guests today. If you're not, paying attention to all of the world of sneakers, there's a lot of cool things happening. And this weekend, by the time you're listening to this weekend or shortly thereafter, a gentleman you might know by the name of Tiger Woods and his new Sunday Red shoes will be available to the public. And I get the chance today to talk to two of the men behind making this happen. And honestly, I feel like this is kind of a bucket list thing for me. Most people know that I've done a lot of work with my friend Jacques Slade over the years, and he's a huge golfer, and this will be part of his conversations for the foreseeable future with me. But I haven't told him that I've got to speak with Charley Hudak and Tyler Pinkos from Sunday Red. So this will be a surprise for him, which is going to be fun. But welcome to the show, guys. I'm glad you're here. I think this is going to be a really cool way for our audience to kind of get to know a little bit about what goes on the golf side of things with footwear. I think sneakers, we get so narrow-minded, and one of the things that we're trying to do with our show is expand those horizons to get people interested in other aspects of the footwear industry. So first, welcome to the show again, and thanks for being on with me. And I want to give you guys a chance to kind of give a little bit of introduction and background on your story into this whole world of footwear.
Well, thanks for having us. Tyler, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Sure. Yeah, no, really excited to be here. Thanks, Nick, for having us. It's been a wild journey, but we're really excited for the launch, and think we did as best job we could to get these shoes to market. So we're really, really excited to be here. My name's Tyler Pinkos. I've been working in footwear for about 15 years now. Started out in the skate shoe world over at DC Shoes, and kind of got my feet wet in footwear as a developer, and learned all about blueprints, fit, comfort, wear, testing, all those different protocols. And then from there went over to Decker's Brands for almost 5 years, and got to see more on the performance side, also the casual side, and how a multi-billion-dollar company operates and sets the ground rules, which was really, really exciting. After that, I went and worked in Italy for a dress shoe brand, and just learned more about the craft and art of shoemaking, and really did a deep dive into leather and materials and last making and all of that kind of stuff. And then most recently was at a casual flip-flop brand as well, smaller companies and big companies. So kind of have that background of athletic and performance meshed with higher end dress and luxury.
That's awesome. How about you, Charley?
Thanks again, Nick, for having us on. It's an honor and a privilege. I guess my story starts. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I grew up in a big family. Kind of was obsessed with sports, and obviously kind of grew up in that era where the sneaker culture boomed. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and ultimately, came into this world of industrial design. Started off at SCAD, then quickly transferred to the University of Cincinnati DAP program. I then started doing some co-ops and got into it. I had I guess when I got there, I was a non-traditional student. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do, and I wanted to design footwear. They quickly found out that was my passion, my obsession, and I was very focused. And I was fortunate enough to meet Tyler at my first job out of school at DC doing skate shoes and action sports stuff, which was really cool. But we overlapped, I think, for like 3 months, 3 or 4 after graduation. Then, I think, been in the game for about 15, 16 years. Ultimately ended up in golf. Not ended up, I sought it out actually, kind of as a homage to my father. And my family has just been golf has been entwined in our lives since birth. And then started off at Puma in golf, so I got to work with the likes of like Ricky, Bryson, Gary Woodland, Ernie Els, Lexi, like a lot of cool people. So really kind of just found a really cool niche. And then subsequently went to work over at FootJoy, met and worked with a lot of great people over there. Their cachet of athletes as well was tremendous experience for me. And then ultimately this opportunity came around, and it's a once in a lifetime type of scenario. And I would say that, I always tell people, I'm like, if I'm dreaming, don't wake me up.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and I think, the situation, like hearing that you both had roots, in the skate shoes in DC, like the eras that you've watched also just probably have shaped so much of how you look at going into this, right? Because you've had so much experience being able to like Tyler, you being in Italy and having that hands-on experience has to be super important to bring it to this next level where we're headed with the conversation today, right? Because you don't necessarily get that with a DC shoes or even with a Puma golf on the other side, right? So like how do you think, as we kind of lead into the development of these shoes, how do you see those things impacting like your kind of creative direction and thought process and creativity moving into this partnership, with Tiger Woods essentially?
Yeah, I think, from the start, I would say that, the process started meeting with Tiger and trying to figure out, he was, our problem statement, and we were trying to figure out what would work best for him. And that was prior to even, Tyler being on board originally. And then once we figured out what the problem statement was, that's when we started to kind of develop the team. And Tyler, with all of his tremendous amount of experience of both like brown shoes and sneakers, was kind of like I would say a diamond in the rough, or it was just like he had a perfect skill set to kind of get us to where we wanted, especially once we figured out that Tiger was looking for more of a heritage kind of traditional look. And so with all the experience that Tyler brought to the table, it just was a nice symbiosis. And then as far as, the design goes, like we truly, our mindset was like nothing on this product is going to be arbitrary. Everything is going to be extremely intentional, down to the stitch. And I'll let Tyler can speak to a little bit about like some of the development as we were going downfield, but it was kind of like a pressure cooker because we needed to move fast. We wanted to move fast. Tiger also was itching to get into a new pair of shoes. So Tyler, if you want to speak to some of the development, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, when we first went down to Jupiter to meet with Tiger, we pulled out all the tricks as far as, measuring his feet, did a 3D scan, talked to him in depth about his preferences with footwear, what he looks for in a shoe, which is essentially performance over everything, as you can imagine.
Yep.
But we took all the measurements and then began the last making process. We seeked out a last making company up in Portland called Yinhua. Brian over there has been pretty much part of our extended family at this point. He's traveled down to Jupiter to meet with Tiger as well, and we've traveled up there multiple times. We went through many different iterations and prototypes. We flew over to Asia, stayed there for about 3 weeks and solicited different factories. And once we had a couple on board, they really went all in on the project and took the same mindset as both us and Tiger when it came to what this project could mean for everyone. And so, we all worked really hard and long, and the factory was able to churn out prototypes quickly. I think, when we went there, traditionally an outsole mold takes about 30 days to open, and we did it in 3.5 days, with the factory just working 24/7 for us to hand carry back a prototype to Jupiter for Tiger to try on. And, based on all those measurements and preferences of Tiger, that first prototype, he actually liked a lot. And then from there, it was, him on the range, him on different courses, testing it and saying, like, I need more foam in the heel. I need, this something's jabbing me here. And so we lowered the internal heel counter 12 millimeters, ran another prototype quick with the factory, got it in Tiger's hands to test. He said, okay, that's fixed now. I'm getting a little pinching here. So it was just a fast-moving evolution of just, what footwear is all about. There's really no silver bullet. You got to work hard and keep trucking at it. And, just really thankful for everyone involved from here to Asia to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
How many of those back and forths, to give a little context for our listeners who are not in the industry, because, I would assume that the development process of a shoe is probably still 12 to 18 months, right? Like that's probably a fair assessment for most footwear that we see. And the iterations, to your point, the iterations are, 3 days is like my you probably saw on camera, my mind kind of just like exploded when you said that, because it's like, like even when you're rushing through things and being a part of that, and, like it feels like forever. Right. But one of the things that I think is really fascinating as an outsider to all of this is like seeing how all of this is like, like you've almost been able to sustain the energy of like the announcement and like the kind of tension, the natural tension of like, when is it coming, and people paying attention to it in a way that's been very organic, in my opinion, where most of the time the sneaker, the footwear and sneaker world does not have that. It's like, a brand signs a new athlete and 2 years later their signature shoe comes out, So how much of the back and forth, and how was that process of getting through all of that for you guys?
Yeah, as far as the process, I've never been on a project like this, I don't think, before in my life. Literally the back and forth was endless. It truly was. Late phone calls, early mornings, visits with the factory, multiple, typically like at other places, it's maybe one a season, two if you're lucky, but I think we kind of snuck in 4. But no, the process, like Tyler was talking about it, it started with the last, and then once we, started getting things right, we started to make tweaks. Our philosophy around this was like, it's like we called it like the 4 pillars, and so the first pillar was fit. Like we got to get the fit right. If shoes don't fit, you're in trouble. Second, it was like comfort. We obviously understand like how important out of box comfort. Not only that, but comfort like over the long haul. Then third is performance, and when you get to performance and you're working with a guy like Tiger, like almost every time we brought an iteration to him, it was under intense scrutiny. Down to the point where it's like talking about, just collar heights and even the internal. He felt things on the internal that I've never had an athlete feel before, and he would end up being right. If the internal heel counter was too high, he would feel it. And he would give us the feedback like we were his little brothers. So he didn't mince words. And then the fourth is the aesthetic, and for obviously like it's important, look good, feel good, play good, kind of mentality. And we also, like Tyler and I and Cody, the other guy on the project, we understood that we needed to take this from the ground up and from the inside out. So we put just as much effort into the internal as we did the external. And it's all part of it. There's a design kind of theory of Gestalt, which is the sum of all the parts. And I've had one person ask me like what my favorite part of the shoe was. And I mean, truly, I think both Tyler, myself, and Cody, like we love every aspect of it, and down to like to the collar lining, the eyelet, the aglet, you name it. We scoured everything, and I think it shows. But yeah, like I would, this process was intense. Like you were right, anywhere from 12 to 18 to 24 months to develop, a high performance golf footwear. And we didn't cut any corners at all. Also, someone asked me, when did this project start? And I was like, back in 1984. We all have a lot of experience of working in this industry. So we brought everything to the table and had a lot of great partners overseas and up in Portland, and everybody. Once, I mean, the doors that opened once we would say that magical name, it changed things. The minute we told a factory that we were working with Tiger, all of a sudden they're having parades and putting our name up in bright lights and posters, and the dinners change from kind of just a typical factory dinner to sushi at a nice local restaurant. So it was literally, we've always said it's a labor of love, and the opportunity we had came with a lot of responsibility, but also came with a lot of privilege. So we were excited about that.
Yeah, I'll add that, when we first came into this project, we had no baggage from a previous company that was already, ingrained in certain factories or had certain toolings open, or this last, we've used for 15 years and it's our last, It's a blessing actually that we started from scratch, because we were able to do everything the right way on our timelines and who we selected as partners. And kudos to the TaylorMade executive team for giving us the keys and saying don't spare any expense. We want to make the best shoe in golf. And so that was always the initiative, and we just kind of broke down doors in order to hit our goal.
That's such a cool thing to hear, because I think a lot of people don't get to understand how common that is throughout footwear. Like most of, I'm going to assume, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume that most of your guys' career, you're kind of, even in the best moments, you're kind of still starting from some, whether it's a last or a partner, or like you're kind of you're already on the road before you get to design the vehicle, kind of, in a sense.
For sure.
Yeah, and there's also like price is also like FOB, and you're designing and developing towards that as well. I mean, you're kind of almost handcuffed in a way, but there's a mentality at TaylorMade and Sunday Red of like the compass, not the clock. And so they, like Tyler said, they kind of gave us the keys and we built it to the max. Like the problem statement was basically build the best golf shoe ever for the most significant and greatest athlete of all time.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I gotta assume, Charlie and I talked a little bit about this before, Tyler, but like, I gotta assume this is probably as bucket list as you can. I mean, it's unfathomable to be able to do this in a career, in years, moving into this, but like to have this, that pressure, you said, I think Charley, you said that the pressure cooker, right? Like this is like the beauty of it all when it comes together. But how different has this experience been in that sense compared to your work in the past on other footwear?
Yeah. I mean, pressure makes diamonds, and we're hoping that everybody that wears our footwear, that they'll have that experience. But yeah, it's truly like there's like no words to describe. It's unlike any other project I've ever worked on. And the team in Jupiter, we worked with his physio, we worked with his trainer. Everybody had this kind of like all hands on deck approach to like fuel us with everything that we needed. And there were late night text messages, there were phone calls, there were emails. I mean, the amount of people that have helped us along this journey has been remarkable and truly humbling. And I remember, we were getting toward the Masters, which is a pretty big event in the golf world. But I got a text from Tiger saying like it's go time. It was pretty firm, and he said we got to stop messing around. So we made one more trip over to Asia, hand carried some samples back, flew them down to Jupiter, literally fit them, got them going, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go play 9, and I'll give you a buzz and let you know how they are afterward. So he goes and plays 9. I head to the airport. I'm on my way to the airport. It's been like a half hour. They call back, and they're like, you killed it. Go get yourself a beer. And like in the back of my head, I was thinking like, how did he just play 9 holes in 30 minutes? And so later on, I asked his manager, Rob, I was like, it only took you 30 minutes to play 9? And he was like, well, it goes by pretty quick when you know where the ball's going. But yeah, he was like, go get yourself a beer. And then, so I was like, thank God. But then the next day, like it was another text like, hey, can we bring, make this adjustment here? So it's like it truly never stops. It's a work in progress. This is our first, foray into something like this, but we're just of the mentality that we're just getting started, constantly improving, and like, using him as the inspiration, and kind of, his mentality is he's just, probably one of the hardest working, most dedicated, passionate people I've ever been around. And it makes it our job easy, because like if he's putting in the time like that, then we definitely need to be putting in the time. So I think Tyler shares my sentiment. Like every tournament, we were just like on pins and needles, like couldn't sleep the night before, just
tracking the weather because it's waterproofing.
Yeah, the last thing we wanted was, a blowout or, anything that, kind of the Murphy's Law, like things can go wrong. But yeah, I mean, we built it to the 9s, and we were lucky to work on a project like this. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and how all the stars aligned. It's very different than every other project I've ever been a part of. Obviously, it's Tiger Woods, but also his level of involvement. I mean, when we first designed the tooling and he tried it on, I mean, he said, okay, I want the spike where my 5th metatarsal is to be moved back, so we had to open up a new tooling again and move the spike back. And I mean, that level of detail that he provided throughout the whole process. Normally, as a developer, you're working with the designer. It's their idea, it's their vision, and for the most part, it's like, all right, we're gonna execute the designer's vision. But with this project, it was Charley's experience as a designer, working hand in hand with Tiger, working hand in hand with me. And the 3 of us put all of our heads together on every single aspect of the shoe to make it better for Tiger and to perform at the highest level. And I mean, Charley can speak to like all the different terms and verbiage that Tiger uses when he's describing what's going on with his swing, and in particular his footwear, and what he wants improvement on. So we made modifications to the outsole, the midsole, the easy stuff was the foam package and the internal construction for the most part, but like just the radius is on the edges and the hardness. We've done probably 10 different hardnesses of foam on the midsole and outsole combo just to get that right amount of walkability for walking 18, and also as highest performing as possible to generate that ground force and power in his swing for stability and traction and all of that. So it was like this meshing of two different schools of thought that had to be merged into one to create this golf shoe for him that he ultimately, is proud of and likes.
Yeah, I mean, I needed a Rosetta Stone to translate. I think, thanks to his Rob, his manager, he essentially was the translator, or interpreter. He helped me along on the way, understanding some of the verbiage that he used. Like, for example, he was like, I'm like getting to bottom, I may have heard it, but he was obsessed about getting to bottom. Then he was talking about getting on point and the transition throughout the swing phase to get on point. And all of these were so nuanced, and it was literally working with 0.5 rate. I mean, it was, and he was so precise too in the explanation, although, it was hard to translate sometimes. Once you got it, you started to understand, and the biomechanics behind it all. I had to go back to some of my biomechanical engineering courses that I took at UC, some of the books, to kind of understood what that means. And but yeah, it was man, I was going through some of the process that we went through in the past. Last night I was getting kind of emotional because this journey, I've always believed the journey is the destination, but man, what the road that we've been on, the path, it's wild. And Tiger still, he'd send me some text message. He's send a screinshot of footwear and be like, ours are better than these. So you would encourage us along the way as well. So it seriously was so, and then, I guess also part of it that was cool for me, and you talked about the sneaker culture a lot, Nick, and I was definitely part of that. I wanted to be an NBA basketball player or a professional athlete myself, but obviously, I didn't make it there, but I still wanted to be connected. And this was a way for me to do it, and to be able to work on a project like this to help hopefully enhance the performance of one of the world's greatest. It was unbelievable. But I think if I had to say everything we put into these shoes, we kind of saw it as an artifact, a moment in time of history, and an artifact that might end up in the Smithsonian or something like that. And we put a lot of storytelling into it. And I've had some great mentors and good people around me in the design world, that kind of, mentored me along. And I think totally, even, we had another senior designer added to the equation kind of halfway through, Cody Cowden, and we all had the same mentality. It's this is going to be a work of art, and we put a lot of storytelling into it. And some of the storytelling is we did a deep dive into golf, we did a deep dive into Tiger himself, we did a deep dive into Buddhism, the animal, the tiger, and then we also went into the military because of his affiliation with the military. And then we researched scuba diving and spearfishing, so we tried to lay some of that into the actual design, here and there. But ultimately, Tiger's main emphasis was just don't mess with the performance. Yeah. So you can do what you like, but don't mess with the performance. So, but one of the I'd say just there's hidden gems or Easter eggs or whatever you want to call some of that storytelling that intertwine. But on the bottom of the outsole, we kind of put a reference to the tiger, and there's 4 claws in the forefoot, and then 1 in the heel, and that heel is the dew claw, and that is a reference to essentially a tiger's thumb, and it allows a tiger to actually kill its prey. And, I feel like once you're inside the ropes, like Tiger, his name is Nick, like Tiger itself, like there's no more dominable force, than Tiger. So it's just kind of like plays on that story. So.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and go ahead, Tyler.
I was just going to add one other thing, like, talking about this whole process and experience and working with Tiger, he's obviously super intense and knows what he wants. And, his presence is felt everywhere, especially when, you're just in the room with him talking about shoes. But he's incredibly kind and humble and encouraging. And like, when we first tried on the prototype with him after we flew back from Asia with no sleep, literally went right to his office. After the meeting, he like gave me a dab and like was like, "Thank you for trusting me." And like, so like that type of just person you're working with is a whole nother level of motivation to just keep your foot on the gas and achieve, success. So like that was a huge motivation to work not only with him, but to find out that he's just cool as hell.
Yeah. He also sent me a text, like on that same note, he just sent me a text. He was like, "We is bigger than me." And I was just like, man, I don't know. It's just another one of those moments where it's just like, man, this is amazing. He is super humble, and it's just amazing to work for someone like that.
Yeah. And, the timing of it all is so beautiful too. I think obviously golf has never been in my lifetime has never been as popular as it is right now. And I guess like one of the things that like looking at the shoe, I can kind of see, obviously it's like an iconic design, that like kind of classic golf shoe, but there's elements to it just like, like even just like choosing to use like the translucent outsole is like a very sneaker thing, and having that little bit of a heel counter that kind of has like almost a basketball, tie to it is a very like, I think a lot of sneakerheads are going to look at this shoe and be like, "Oh wait, I haven't seen a golf shoe like this." And then like, I'm kind of curious too, because like the first thing that stood out to me visually was actually the insole has like such a unique look to it that, like I feel like that is the almost like in some ways like a huge selling point, in the sense that like the look and feel of tradition in the golf world is being challenged right now in a lot of ways. But kind of what you guys are saying is like, it just has to be comfortable and perform. And this is what came from those two kind of driving forces in the conversations with him. So how did you get to the point to have these kind of like very subtle elements that obviously come from both of your careers in the footwear industry, to be a part of that, and how much of that was, Tiger's experience also, kind of probably being involved in this process to some extent on the other side of his career, in his earlier years in his career and going through that process.
Yeah, I remember back in like 2002 or 3, I remember saying that the sneaker culture is coming for golf, like it's gonna come, and a lot of people would say, including my dad, would say like, no, it won't make its way into golf. And then, ultimately we see it. It's super popular right now. Everybody's getting into the game. There's so much competition, and you referenced the sock liner. That just kind of speaks to how diligent we were about approaching this. The storytelling behind that is, we had like the idea of just the aesthetic, and we used inspiration from like water. Tiger talked about being most at peace when he was scuba diving or spearfishing, so we wanted to kind of reference that. So we put, kind of like a water graphic on the top sheet, and then we have a kind of a massage footbed on one of the sock liners, and that was inspired by a coral reef. Again, just another little nod to kind of the storytelling that we put into the product. It's definitely, it performs, it's functional, but we wanted to kind of put our spin on it. And then, I think this is, came from Tyler, but like as we were doing just the open cell PU foam for the sock liner, traditionally they're like blue or black, and Tyler was like, let's make that Sunday red. And so we were worried about the bleeding and whatnot, but we found a supplier that was able to pull it off without issues. And then we put a Tiger's signature on the backside.
Oh, that's cool.
And then 2 inspirational quotes, one on the flat and then a different one on the massage. And one's put in the time and the other one's do the work. But we just wanted to like inspire the community. Another kind of like hidden kind of storyline is like just the Tiger effect alone. Like we put concentric circles around each spike. And that's just a reference to the Tiger effect. The first one is kind of like his inner circle, his family, Charley and Sam, his mom and dad, and then all of his close like business partners and friends. The second was kind of the golf community, people like ourselves, people that have been severely impacted by the game. And then the third was just culturally. I mean, he's met with Nelson Mandela, like a lot of presidents. He's significant in the culture, and what he's done for diversity, inclusion, and all of those things that he's impacted the world. Like, it's incredible. I mean, walking around at Genesis, one of the first tournaments that I was at with him, there were people dressed up as tigers. I mean, it was crazy. Like, actually, like they were like good costumes too. I was like, that's amazing. But imagine walking around like that for 4.5, 5 hours. It was incredible. But yeah, he's made a profound impact on I think everybody. I mean, there's that famous Saturday Night Live, like Tiger Woods, So, I mean,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, once in a lifetime kind of athlete. So, in person.
Yeah, when we were in a van in Asia, and this was before we told anyone we were working with Tiger, and I think Charlie asked our factory manager, like, who do you know from the U.S. that's famous, and he said Taylor Swift. I think he said Kanye West and Tiger Woods. And then fast forward like a couple months later, we were like, we're working with Tiger on this project, and they like freaked out. I mean, it was just incredible. His influence overseas is just as big, if not bigger, than over in the U.S.
Yeah, and shout out to Kanye East.
Yeah, we call our factory partner Kanye East.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I have to say too, it just feels like the fun that you guys are having with it, shows in this, right? Like, I think that's an underrated aspect of what we all do in work and life. And, when you're able to have those moments, it shows in the product, it shows in the stories, it shows all across, when those relationships are great. And I'm excited to see, where you go from here. Considering, I think the sport being at such a turning point, like you said, the diversity that's coming into the sport, both in the, in the style sense as well, we're kind of getting to the point where, there's this breaking of tradition that's, there will be a back and forth, of course, but like Tiger is so influential in so many people's lives that it's kind of cool to see a more traditional shoe compared to the trend of, not to pick on my friends that are wearing Jordans on the golf course, but it's like, it's kind of cool to see that, like that pendulum on the other side with this too, where like there are the elements of progress within the design, but the look and feel still has that tradition, and I think for me, like we just recently had a show that I was basically saying, when you look at sneakers as a whole, a lot of times we go down these retro rabbit holes that, it's beautiful. Nostalgia is a beautiful thing, but it hurts your feet. Nostalgia is painful to the feet. Like my, favorite shoe is always going to be the Chuck Taylor because it's the most universal. Everybody has a story with it, your grandparents, your parents, your friends, whomever, but it's absolutely terribly uncomfortable, and so like, it's kind of interesting to see like how that's going to play a part and where you guys go from this design into future designs and what that looks like, to kind of bring that parallel of the kind of the rebelliousness of fashion and golf along with this, right? Because obviously everything that what makes a lot of these great athletes like a Tiger Woods, I assume, but like it reminds me of Kobe Bryant and some of the other athletes that we're familiar with in footwear, where their work ethic and their commitment to stay focused on what matters is so important to their success. But that also it kind of puts you guys in a very, important position to be able to translate that into something that relates to this next generation of golfers that are going to come up and see Tiger for this part of his career. How do you guys like kind of look at that in terms of the next evolution of where you're headed with this partnership? Obviously, I know you're really probably getting thrown into the mix of this partnership, but I also know that as experienced in this as you've been, you are already probably thinking, okay, like where do we go from here? What are those next important moments? How do we, tie in the particular tournaments or the events that he's going to have throughout the next, 12 to 18 months or whatever that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, just to touch on this, but the Pioneer Cyprus, there's no mistaking that it's a golf shoe. It looks like a golf shoe. It smells like a golf shoe. It's a golf shoe, but it's built athletically. Like I think if you start to pull out some of the, pull out the sock liner, see how it's built like an athletic shoe. We wanted, our factory partner actually had to buy new machines to kind of make this possible. But in terms of the future, the sky's the limit, and I think it's awesome because like this individual Tiger Woods gives us that opportunity to go into other categories. We kind of have a 3-prong approach to it. We have what we call in heritage performance, which is kind of golf silhouettes, more traditional and in nature, and then we have what we're calling contemporary sport. Or sport contemporary, and that's more kind of like your athletic looking silhouettes, kind of in the vein of some of the performance brands, which we're already downfield with, and then to round it out, we have another category that we're working on called adaptive lifestyle. We coined it adaptive lifestyle, so we see it on a continuum. The continuum being on one side, we could do a Chelsea boot, and on the other side, we can do, we could do kind of a recovery shoe, a recovery slide, a slide. We could do, really perhaps even running, like depending on anything, but it's everything surrounding the game. These athletes today are spending more time in the gym than they've ever spent before, and it all pretty much started with Tiger. I mean, he changed the game. I'd say he was like an industry changing event himself, and until I guess COVID, there was never even a growth period like there was when Tiger first hit the scene. So, we have high aspirations, and we're pedal to the metal, ready to roll.
Yeah, I'd say like Charlie said, our 3-prong approach with those different categories and how they can all live on a continuum to penetrate the market. But ultimately, it's what Tiger wants. Like if he wants a training shoe for deadlifts, that's what we're working on. He recently said he was open to the idea of a spikeless, so we're downfield on a spikeless. I mean, everything is coming from Tiger. We put the athlete first. It happens to be the most badass athlete ever, so it makes our job easy. But I think if you start with him and his directive, and then it trickles down into product, and then we start, going back and forth, ultimately what we end up with will be a tool for the everyday player, the everyday, person, athlete that can benefit from Tiger's insights. So that's kind of what we've all just been grasping onto. Like he truly is kind of that creative director in this organization, and then we go and run and bring it back to him, and then he has his comments, and we're just constantly refining, constantly building, and constantly, trying to get better until finally we think we're at a point where, we're ready to go into commercialization and everyone feels good about it.
Yeah. People ask, like, does he move the needle? And everyone's response is he is the needle. so it's, like Tyler was saying, I think, like, he's the muse, and I think we just, we turn over every stone, and it's like athlete driven. And that was like a really refreshing part of it too. It's like, it's performance, like he's not like, fashion doesn't necessarily drive him like performance does. Performance means everything. And like, just to think of, like, even myself, and I think Tyler, like, wearing the shoes ourselves, like we gain benefits from it. We see how it impacts, even down to like just the greens. Like, he was really worried about greens preservation and making sure he wouldn't, affect the competition's, their path or their lie or anything like that. So we scour that. Truly, he's a unique individual. I'll say that. Intense and kind and humble, but he's one of a kind.
Yeah, that's fascinating. My mind is going wild. Like, I feel like we can't even really fathom that, right? Like the level of detail of a sport that we, even the most passionate of us as, consumers,
common folk.
Common folk. We don't get into those, to those levels of specificity with things. So, one question. The shoe is the Sunday Red Pioneer Cyprus. How did you land on that name?
Tyler, I think you can hit this one.
So the Pioneer was Tiger's high school team name. And I thought that was cool because we're all pioneering this project together. And then the Cyprus is his hometown and some other significance to his golf game.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we had like a nomenclature kind of, we wanted it to be a golf and cypress trees. And then we have some models coming out that will have, similar kind of naming convention. But yeah, everything, that we put into this is comes from the source, and Tiger's the source. And the rule of thirds is important to him. Three's kind of a constant in his life. You don't have, pretty much you don't have to go too far to realize that 3 is an important number. But ironically, when I asked him what his favorite number was, he was like 1. But yeah, I think another thing, Tyler talked about how many iterations we did on the midsole, the outsole, like even getting lower to the ground. He wanted to get lower and lower. He keeps talking about it. We just sent him another iteration that's even lower. He's constantly in the pursuit of improvement and getting better, and yeah, where we are now, you feel it, like when we believe, like through biomechanics and like all of the kind of, what's trending and what's taking place with all the science that we have at our disposal now. Like, it's going to help. It's going to, help with shot dispersion. It's going to help with, power in your swing, your swing speed. It's going to help with your putting and reading greens, and, like just getting kind of closer to the ground is going to be kind of a game changer for a lot of folks. Common folks like us.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. When we first went down there, I think that was the first time he like opened up one of the closets. And we just like tore apart it and went in and looked at every single shoe. And he had, holes cut out of this, slits put in the upper. Like, he's a tinkerer for sure. And so like we were looking at it like, whoa, why did you do that here? And then he would say like, I need a little more room on my 5th metatarsal, And so we took that, understood what he did to a previous model, and then how we built the last, taking a little bit more of a wall on the side of the last to give his Pinky a little more room to breathe and just constantly going back and forth. But having someone like Tiger that is, even more obsessed with these little details and these little things that ultimately can have an impact on improving his game was just a fountain of information that we had to synthesize and put into, physical form. But it's cool to work with someone who has so much direction. Some people are like, I don't care as long as it looks cool, but like that was the complete opposite approach.
Yeah. One time, I actually got one of his shoes. I think one that he may have worn in one of his majors, and I was like holding it and like and all of a sudden it crumbled because it was like old PU, and I was like, oh my gosh, I just ruined an artifact. And I was like picking up all the pieces on the ground, but. Yeah, I think, that's the coolest part because like he cares about the game. I remember one time I just said like, what's the overall objective here? And he's like, man, I love the game. I want to play. I want to continue playing. And he was like, I love golf. And that's just for me. It sent chills. Like I think I went back to my hotel room and might have cried a little bit, but it was seriously, it was unlike any other project. We've said it 1,000 times, but we're just very lucky.
Well, congratulations, guys. I love the way the shoe looks. I'm hoping to get myself a pair and get back out there. Just for the listeners, I think by the time you're hearing this, it'll probably be available. It's available December 4th, and then $250, and then I think a couple of the colorways are $275. I'll have those details in the description. If you want to tell people where they can go to find the shoes or find you, let's do that before we wrap up. www.sundayred.com. And then, I think all the social handles for Sunday Red are pretty easily to track down.
Yeah, we're both on LinkedIn, just under our names.
Yeah.
And happy to connect with, anyone in the community and, talk more about it and, ultimately just keep spreading the word and sharing the love. I think one cool thing you mentioned before about like we're having fun, and when I first graduated I had a business degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted to have fun because I wanted to like live that cliche statement of if you're having fun you never work a day in your life. And one of my buddies was like, you should check out the footwear industry, like there's a lot of cool people in there. And so that's what got me in the door with footwear. I always liked fashion, but I never thought I'd work in footwear. And then the people you meet and the doors it opens, and ultimately like bringing a product to life. Like today we're doing our pre-sale. It's just like this energy in the office that's so awesome. And, people constantly giving you high fives, and it's just like, it's a fun atmosphere. We're having fun, and working with Tiger is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. And also for me, too, is like, I pay it forward in a way too. Like I have the opportunity to teach at some schools around the country. Always return back to my alma mater, UC DAP, to teach a footwear seminar. Because like I didn't know that this existed. I didn't know what was out there, that this could be a profession. And to be able to work with young high school and college age students to kind of help them figure out what they want to do. I don't necessarily, my objective isn't to make them stormtroopers or footwear designers or anything like that. It's essentially just to show them what's out there, or at least act as like somewhat of a good influence. But yeah, I think Tyler and I both have the same mentality. We've been very fortunate, and we definitely love sharing the wealth in terms of like what we can do to help people get along the way. Cause life can be hard sometimes. But we all have the similar mentality, and like it takes a village, it truly does take a village. And shout out to everybody that, we've worked with and have helped us along the way, tremendous amount of sacrifices, a lot of trips, a lot of, time away from family and friends. And yeah, they've been there for us this whole time. And yeah, we're grateful.
Yeah.
Beyond grateful.
Well, and I love that you said that too, because I think that's that's kind of my goal with this show, is to just expose people to opportunities that they don't really know. Like I'm of that age where when I was a teenager, thinking about anything sneakers was so far out of the possibility. Like you said about sports, it's like, you could be an athlete, you could be a designer, or you could be a CEO, but there's tens of thousands of people that work in this industry that make all this stuff come together. And I'm glad to get a chance to talk to you guys. It's been really an honor to chat with you guys about this. I think, it's super inspiring as somebody who's been in the footwear industry for so long. Of course, it's great to think about talking to Tiger and all of these athletes and stuff, but I think it's much more tangible for our listeners to get to hear from people like yourselves that are working right in the middle of all of this stuff that they don't get to hear the stories directly from the people that are living those experiences parallel to the athletes. So it's been really cool to be able to chat with you guys, and I appreciate your time today.
Oh, thank you. I mean, this is awesome.
Much. Great opportunity. Love what you're doing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Thanks, guys. Well, appreciate everybody listening. Like I said, we'll put links to the product in the description and links to the Sunday Red social accounts and website and all of that stuff if you want to find it. And we'll probably have, by the time you're listening to this, you'll probably have some images up on the Instagram account too, so you can check out the shoe. It's just... I feel lucky just to get to do this all the time. So thanks everybody for listening and rocking with us with the show. We appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Nick again. Before you take off, do us a solid and head over to Apple Podcasts to leave us a review. Give us a rating on Spotify and Amazon Music, and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel because we have even more video content coming soon. Speaking of new content, we have an amazing community of sneaker enthusiasts that hang out in our Sneaker History Discord on a daily basis. While sneakers is a connection point that brought us all together, we've all discovered countless shared passions that we have in common with each other. We recently launched a couple of new podcasts directly from our community. One of them is a Formula One podcast. If you're an F1 fan like me, the Exhaust Notes podcast is your weekly fix of Formula One fun. It's hosted by myself, Rohit Malhotra, and Todd Yates. New episodes drop every Tuesday. I've been wearing fitted hats for years and collecting my favorite teams since I was a little leaguer. It has been awesome to see so many new fans getting into fitteds in recent years. Crown and Stitch is our new talk show about fitted hats with Dexter, Keith, and myself, where we talk about fitted hats, snapbacks, throw in some obscure hats because we all kind of like some funky stuff once in a while, don't we? Copping, collecting, and so much more. New episodes drop every Wednesday. Hit the links in the show notes for this episode to give our new shows a listen, and be on the lookout for more new podcasts dropping soon. Last but not least, tell someone you like their kicks today. You never know how far a simple compliment can take you, and we all know how good it feels to have someone show their appreciation. Thank you all for the support, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.